Welcome to Halftime. I'm Doug Piper, and I'm a Halftime alumni from Greenville, South Carolina, in the USA. This is our 47th live streaming event, and I want you to know how much I appreciate each and every one of you joining us tonight. Now, Halftime is the world's leading peer learning center for successful people who are in transition. We teach, coach, and connect leaders who are looking for more meaning, joy, and impact in their next season. Now, it would help us a lot if you would vote in today's polls. They're right down there, roughly in the center of the screens. If you'll click on there, it'll just take you a second. And this not only will help Don in his presentation prioritize what you want to hear, but also it'll help shape future programming. So it takes just a moment. Great thing coming up. We have a few seats available at both the upcoming training in Charlotte, North Carolina, and the March online halftime refresh. Now, if you click the green box at the bottom, you can email Lloyd and request more information on those events. You don't want to miss that, I promise. Now, I think you're really going to enjoy today's event, Ruthlessly Executing Your Life Purpose, Imposing Your Calling on Your Calendar. Fellow Halftime alumni Don Wenner will share the three most important things that he does to ruthlessly execute on his unique purpose without becoming miserably inflexible. Now, there's an old expression that many a slip between the cup and the lip. Now, in other words, often we have the desire to do something, but somehow we just fail to execute. Then there are other times when we really work our plans and things just don't work out anything like it did on paper. Now, as the result, some just decide not to plan at all, or others just respond to what comes their way. Others craft an airtight plan and execute unwaveringly. Well, Peter Drucker dedicated his life to teaching us management and planning. Yet he really surprised us when he said, quote, "The most unhappy people I know are planners," end quote. Now, Peter was showing us that there's a third way, using planning as a way of getting clear on our purpose and how it might be lived out. But adapting the plan at every twist in the road. Now, his big idea was, quote, "The opportunity always comes over the transom." Now, in just 30 minutes, Halftime alumni Don Wenner will share three of the most important things that he does to ruthlessly execute on his unique purpose without becoming miserably inflexible. Now, welcome, Lloyd and Jimmy. Don is the founder and CEO of DLP Real Estate Capital. DLP is a leader in single and multifamily real estate with more than 10,000 apartments. They generate consistent returns and give back through the DLP Positive Returns Foundation. That's an organization focusing on job creation and affordable housing. DLP's purpose is dream, live, and prosper. Now, Don lives in St. Augustine, Florida, with his wife and three sons. We also have Halftime Institute founding partner Lloyd Reed. Lloyd, now, I'll bet you've seen a lot of halftimers find their purpose only to fail to execute. When you've seen all these, have you noticed a pattern between the ones who successfully execute and the ones who don't?
Yeah, it's a big thing, Doug, and it's obviously disappointing when that happens. And you and I both know from our own halftime journeys that it takes persistence, it takes grit, it takes intentionality. Persistence and intentionality is a big thing. And Don, you and I have been on this journey for a few years now, and like Doug said, I've seen thousands of people go through halftime over the last 23 years, and I'm just so glad that you're taking some time away from, a busy family night, putting kids to bed, to really share some of what you've been learning, because you are really great at ruthlessly imposing the priceless things in your life, including your calling, including Carla and those three special boys, into your calendar, despite all the stuff you've got going with 500 employees. And I ran across a verse, Don, the other day in my devotional that made me think of you, and it's in Colossians 1 verse 4, where the Apostle Paul said, we pray that the lines of purpose in your lives will never go slack, tightly tied as they are to your future in heaven, kept taut by hope. So just think that through. He's praying that the lines of purpose in your life and mine won't go slack, and that what keeps them tight is our sense of are tied to our future in heaven. In other words, thinking like a long-term investor. And I know this is how you think. You think like an investor, but like a long-term investor, looking for a return that way outstrips your life and mine. Kept taut by hope, because our faith is rooted in hope. So when your purpose and the lines go slack, what does that look like? What does that feel like? Well, I think it feels like sloppy busy. Sloppy busy is when your calendar's kind of full, but it's lacking the purpose and the focus and the intentionality that you would like. And there's a lot of clutch slipping in your life. So I've watched you, Don, kind of ruthlessly execute on your purpose. I have the privilege of kind of being in your personal board and sharing my plans with you and learning from each other, even though we are, let's see, I'm 60 and you're 36, I think. So whatever the math is on that, it's 20 some years apart. So to set the stage, take a few minutes and tell us a little bit about your story and your halftime journey, just to frame it up for us.
Thank you, Lloyd and Doug. Pleasure to be here. So yes, it's been a great journey being a part of Halftime this past year. My journey to where I am today began in a small town, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, home of Bethlehem Steel, and maybe today better known for Lehigh University, about an hour north of Philadelphia. And I grew up as the oldest of 5 to 2 16-year-old parents. So I grew up with my dad being a prison guard most of my childhood, and my mom running a home daycare out of our home. So I was the oldest of 5 with 5 other children in my home at all times. And so I grew up to very young parents with very limited resources, as you can imagine, with those careers and being teenagers. Very small thinkers, but they rooted me in faith. Um, uh, Grew up with a high level of sort of ambition and entrepreneurship, and ended up in real estate at 20 years old while I was a college student at Drexel University, thinking I was going to go into finance. And so I started as a real estate agent and as a home flipper, in short. So it was 2006, the peak of the real estate market. And my message was, your home sold in 68 days, guaranteed, or I'll buy it. And since the market was turning and people were struggling to sell their homes, it led to a lot of motivated people contacting us, and we'd help them sell their home and shift the risk to us, or simply buy their home. And really was, in short, we focused on providing solutions. And that was the beginning of a journey that I've now been on for 16 years, building DLP. Today, as Doug said, we have 500 employees, a few billion dollars in assets. And we've grown the organization by 60% or more every year for the past 16 straight years. Have sort of mastered what I like to call building an elite organization, which is what I actually wrote a book on. But that approach to building an elite organization is the same approach I've taken to pursuing my purpose and to living fully through all areas of my life. And about 5 years ago, I'd say, I kind of realized I had achieved, financial independence and had plenty of wealth for my children and likely their children. And money wasn't my driving force, and really began very intentionally focusing on making an impact and trying to figure out what my platform was to make that impact. And I think what I'm learning from more and more, I think halftimers today, realized that my organization, my business, the relationships that I have is my platform, and the platform I can use to make the biggest impact on the crisis and causes that I'm focused on, alongside a private foundation that I set up about 5 years ago. So it's been a heck of a journey, a lot of fun, and can't wait for the kind of the next stage here ahead.
And, Don, one of the things that I see you doing well right now in this season of life is you have, Donnie, that's 10, Alex, that's 9, Jacob, that you just adopted, that's fairly newborn. And today, congratulations, the adoption is finalized. And I know that Carla wishes you were back there helping, settle them down. But, I had, as you know, we had dinner together, and I had time to just chat with Carla. And one of the things I love is that, part of our calling is to really love our spouse, and cherish them. And I see you doing that. I could see that in her eyes and in her respect of you. And I admire that with all the busyness you have going. So talk a bit more specifically about your mission and how you're integrating it into your business. And it would be so easy for you to just get focused on doing more deals and growing the funds. But, talk a bit about how these two intertwine, and that takes intentionality. And then we'll come to how you impose it into your calendar.
Yeah, thank you, Lloyd. So my mission, personal mission, is I will serve the Lord, leveraging DLP as my platform and utilizing my skills as a CEO and leader to make a positive impact on the major crisis in the world on affordable housing, jobs, legacy, and happiness, while being the best father and husband I can be. So that's my personal mission statement. It's a little long, but in short, I want to leverage DLP as a platform to impact 4 pretty big crises in America: affordability, jobs, legacy, and what we call happiness, while not losing sight of being the best, father and husband I can be. And so I realized that DLP was my platform. I went and over the last couple of years, I intentionally we run a series of private investment funds. We went and made all of our investment funds impact funds and required on ourselves that at least 85% of all the capital we invest will be invested in housing that is affordable and will remain affordable for the local workforce. And we really put a lot of focus around making sure that the efforts we do from a nonprofit standpoint, or from our foundation, which is called the DLP Positive Returns Foundation, works alongside leveraging our platform, and with a real focus on, we like to steal from Lloyd, making a 100x impact. And so what we decided to do is we went and said, all right, what do we do at DLP? So from a for-profit standpoint, we invest in housing, workforce housing that's affordable, while building companies and creating jobs, and which lead to happiness and at the same time. So we kind of sort of went and looked at each of the things that we're doing at DLP, and we said, all right, alongside what we do for profit, while we do what we do for profit, we will make the same sort of one-for-one almost effort from our foundation, from a nonprofit standpoint. So while we mandate that all of our capital, our $2.5 billion of capital, is being invested in housing that's affordable, we decided what we mainly do is we buy apartment communities. And so with every apartment community we buy, we provide Bibles to every resident in our communities. We run Bible studies at our communities. We provide enrichment and education, community development programming. We provide housing for Christ evangelists on site for free. We provide housing to other nonprofits, such as those for pregnant moms, kids aging out of foster care, homeless programs. We provide first-time homebuyer grants, and so forth for every single community we buy. And then another thing we do is we make loans. And so for every loan we make against real estate for profit, we make a micro loan to a small business. And so we just sort of have this one-for-one approach of leveraging our expertise and our relationships and our skills around housing and building companies, creating jobs to make the biggest impact we can. So about and can you hear me here, Doug? I'm looking at some of the notes. Can you still hear and see me?
Doug,
Yes.
you think,
yes.
what do you think's happening with the notes on the side?
I've got it. I think we're good now.
Oh, good. Okay. And Don, by the way, the 100X, that came from someone a couple thousand years ago that told a story about the soil that produced 100-fold. I didn't make that 100X up myself. But, so go through some of those just to step back a second for people who are just kind of catching up. So the platform, and then there's 3 or 4 ways that you're leveraging the platform for impact.
Yeah. So I'll just maybe take one more quick second backwards then to that point. So I did what, 5 years ago or so, I did what a lot of us do when we achieve some wealth. I said, all right, I'm gonna give, right? I'm gonna tithe. I'm gonna make a difference through philanthropy. And so I set up a giving policy at DLP where we said, hey, everybody in the company has the ability to give 1% of their time to ministry, to service projects, whatever they want, paid time. And we said, we're going to give 0.25% of our revenue to our foundation to impact these causes. And we said, we're going to give 0.25% of all the capital we raise to these causes or to our foundation to impact these causes. And that felt really good. And it felt like, hey, as we're growing the company, we're growing our impact. And, this past year, that was over $1 million in giving. And it's growing pretty rapidly, which is exciting. But it hit me that last year, maybe 2 years ago now, that when I hit 400 employees in my organization, I realized I had 1 million hours of people's time a year that I was able to direct. And I realized I was doing hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue and had billions of dollars of capital. And it hit me, why would I want to just do good with 0.25% of our revenue and 0.25% of my time, or 1% of our time? And why not do good with everything, right? So that's when we realized we could leverage our platform and do good with everything we have while still doing the thing we can't do for profit and alongside. So like one example, so we look at the big things we do at DLP is we buy real estate, buy rental communities, apartment communities. So we have all these different programs we do at the community we're in and around the community.
Yeah. So Doug, you broke up there just a sec, Don.
Oh,
you're
back.
You're back. You're about to talk about apartment life and things like that, I think.
Yeah. So we decided that all of our rental communities will make a positive impact at the communities and around the communities we invest in, such as partnering with organizations like Apartment Life, where they bring a Christ evangelist into that community. We provide them with a free apartment and some money each month to pay to have somebody on site who's going to focus on creating a community and a community around Christ at the communities we own. We do things like every time we employ a person at DLP, which in the past year we hired over 100 employees. Every time we give a job to a well-qualified, educated person at DLP, we pay for career training or an education grant to somebody else to get the training and skills necessary to get a good job. So we just try to look at each thing we're doing for profit and find a way to, alongside of that, do good from our foundation.
So, that requires building a culture, right, Don, where there's constant innovative thinking about, okay, what are we doing? How can we do it well? How can we do it better? And then how can we innovate so that we can, bring compassion and truth and love and goodness to other people? So, with a whole lot of direct reports and 500 employees and growing at 60% a year, that's hard to impose all of that into your calendar. So what I've been struck with is how you use systems and processes to try to make this all work and still be able to get home at night. I think you told me that over the last 7 years, you've only been away from the family just a few nights. Is that right? So you somehow find your way to make it back to Carla and the boys on a pretty almost exclusively basis. So talk about how you integrate this and kind of like the title said, ruthlessly impose your calling or your purpose into your calendar.
Yeah, thank you, Lloyd. And that is all correct. Yeah, I've only had one trip, a couple nights, and it only became down to sickness basically that I've slept away from my wife in the past 10 years. So certainly some of it is life decisions we make, like we today cyber school our kids, which gives us flexibility and ability to travel that works for us. But it started with intentionality, which Lloyd, you're the most intentional person I know. And so I've put intentionality from the very beginning into all the areas of my life. And I call it the 8 F's of life, which are faith, family, friends, freedom, fun, fulfillment, fitness, and finance. And I try to put the same intention I put in my business around all areas of my life, and clear goals, clear purpose around each of those areas. So I use a tool very similar to the tools and halftime that we've created called the personal compass, where I lay out, our longer term goals that I have in my life and what I want to be remembered for, and my perfect life numbers and checkpoints for 100 years from now and 20 years from now. And then I break those goals into what we call a living fully dashboard, and gladly provide any of this out to anybody listening, which is just simply setting goals around each area of your life. So each year I have one or two goals around faith. I have one or two goals around fitness, one or two goals around family. And then I make sure that the activities necessary to achieve those goals are in my schedule. And so that's not always easy for sure, but I think we all make time for what we really value, right? And often what we say we value is very different than we actually value, right? Because where we spend our time is what we actually value, right? And there's all these studies that say, the average American today spends somewhere around 5 hours a day between social media and television, but feel they have no time, right? And so my point is that we all have time. It's just what we're choosing to spend it on. So I've decided that being home for dinner, as an example, is a top priority. And so I give myself flexibility one night a week not to be home for dinner. And that's it. And the rest of the nights I'm home. I made it a priority to coach my kids' sports, which I've coached all their sports now for years. And I make sure I just build these things into my calendar, just like you would do for an important work meeting or trip. I build all the other areas of my life and just build it into my annual calendar for the year, and then into a weekly schedule, and then into daily activities. And that's what's been really it's really simple when you break it down, but it does take planning. And one of my favorite quotes is the quote that uh, many people have the will to win, but few people have the will to prepare to win.
Hmm.
And it's easy to do reactionary work. It's easy to fill our calendars with things that act upon us. It's much harder to proactively plan out how to spend my time, and how to maximize that time, and how to filter what's really important, right? To what you like to say, Lloyd, of never trade what is irreplaceable for what is merely valuable, and showing that in how we lay out our calendar and our schedules,
Yeah,
and that's
and that takes courage, Don. You have to be confident. Every coaching call you and I have, you are walking. Because it's not disrespect of my time. It's not downplaying what we need to be doing together in our time. It's respecting the fact that you just have to get 2 for 1s and 3 for 1s in your life. And if you're going to be around over the long haul, I know your goal is to live as long as you can, you've got to get the exercise in. It's just simple as that, right? So how do you, and yet you've never said to me, well, you have a winsome way of coming across about, hey, I'm walking now while we're doing our coaching deal, right? And I'm sure there's lots of times you have to say to your team, I'm getting on the plane to go home now because I'm home every night with Carla. So how do you gain the confidence to have a firm yes or firm no?
Yeah, they're great questions, and so I say start with in my people in my life, and my my employees, or my investors or clients or so forth. Um, uh, I'm not, to your point of having courage. I'm not, not only am I not afraid to share that. Look, no, what my priorities are and where they are and where I need to be and why. But I encourage them to do the same and to be empowered to prioritize their time around what's most important in their lives. So when you have that freeing feeling that you can be transparent with what your priorities are, and be okay with that, and be okay that others may um, you know uh, not have the same priorities, or not always fully respect it, knowing that that's okay. So everybody in my organization knows, and I want them not only to know, because so they know what to expect from me, and know why they can't get a hold of me from 5:30 to 8:30 any night of the week, right? But I also want to empower them to do the same, because I know how important it is. Um, and as you said, so with these 8 F's of life, as I call them, but these prioritizing all the different aspects of your life, the way I try to think about it is in the terms of take like baseball. So if I'm spending time where I'm only impacting one of those 8 F's, that's a single. And if I'm able to work on 3 of them at the same time, that's a triple. If I can work on 4 or more at the same time, that's a home run. So
Hmm.
anytime I can incorporate multiple areas of my life into the same day, into the same activity, into the same trip, that's a win. And so I try to very intentionally do that. I plan when I have to travel for work. I plan not just to bring my family, but I plan impactful times that we can have while we're there. And I set specific time apart to be with them. Starting on Saturday in 2 days here, I'm doing a month mini sabbatical, and I'm not going to be in the office for an entire month. And I am doing some traveling for conferences and some speaking, and so forth. But I'm bringing my family along that entire trip, including my mom and sister for a good amount of it. And I'm going to be having a lot of really focused family time. I have some of my best friends flying into different locations with their families. So I've done a lot of planning to make sure that we're going to Arizona for a number of days, Colorado, Puerto Rico, and that I'm making impactful, focused experiences while certainly still getting my work done and moving the ball in my organization, but making sure to make priorities for what's really important. And that just takes planning. And I'd be happy to, if we have time, kind of show briefly how I actually do that. And it's nothing fancy, but it just takes a little bit of intentional planning.
Yeah, and let's come back to that slide, Don, in just a second, and we'll go to the poll. And Doug, in my life early, what I found was like what the kids were still home was that first I had to get really clear on my priorities and what my calling was. But I think most of our alumni are clear on that. But then I had to start putting them in the calendar at the beginning of the year, throughout the year, prioritizing Linda days first. Every Friday is a Linda day, putting calendar time for our date nights with each of the kids in our family, putting family travel on there, putting my time with the Lord, putting my silent solo retreat days on there, time that I meet with my business partner, since we still own a business, every summer, and then say, I can do my ministry work and put it on the calendar. So for me, it was for years, Don, it was 100 days speaking, 50 days coaching, 50 days writing, 50 Linda days. That's 5 days of the week. But you can hear in all that just a high degree of intentionality. And that's kind of what I've been learning and watching your life, Don. So Doug, take us into the poll, and let's see what folks say are the biggest interest areas for them.
All right. Appreciate everybody joining us, and I'm sorry that there were some technical issues at the beginning, but it is recorded and it will be in the replay, so not a problem. In our poll, and it's not too late for you to vote in our poll, choose your most significant obstacle to living out your purpose or mission in your life. First answer is I'm not convinced of my calling, so I'm not all in. Second answer, I'm too distracted by former commitments, business, social, and serving, but they don't really even serve my purpose. Third answer, I find it's too easy to prioritize fun and comfort over the hard work of finding my purpose. And lastly, I've not figured out how to invest my time in my purpose and make the income that we need. Well, I hope Don will reconnect. Let's look at the poll and we'll go through that.
Yeah.
So right now it looks like very strongly I'm too distracted by former commitments, business, social, and serving that don't fit my purpose. And second to that is I'm not convinced of my calling, so I'm not all in. And third is none of the above. So the two strongest categories for us, Lloyd, are too distracted by former commitments, and second to that is I'm not convinced of my calling, so I'm not all in.
Yeah, and let's assume, Doug, that the vast majority of people don't find those limits, those things that you listed in the poll as limiting factors. That either they feel like they really are imposing their calling, and most of our alumni are, into your calendar. So, Don, if you can still hear us well, let's tackle the second one first.
Yes.
That they're not convinced of their calling. How did you gain clarity, and what do you recommend about really confirming that this is the space, the affordable housing and those other causes are the space you should be all in?
Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know why my video is not working right at the moment, but I'm working to solve that. But
We can see you.
So, oh, you can. Okay. All right. Good. Wonderful. So for me, I say it starts with, as simple as it sounds, taking the time to think about it, right? And as simple as that sounds, I think more times than not, people don't do that. And we've done this simple exercise that I learned largely from Lloyd at a number of different events, where we just force people to take the time and jot down what they feel their purpose is, their mission, what areas they want to, what crisis they want to impact. And it's amazing when giving in 30 minutes of time, and knowing that they're going to have to share and discuss that with some other people, how much clarity people can gain under that simple 30 minutes of kind of pressure, knowing they're going to have to share those ideas. And just for the first time, jotting that down and thinking through, which is what comes to mind on a piece of paper, and then having to share it. It's amazing how much clarity, comes about. And then you do that again after a little bit of thinking and getting the conversation started, a few weeks later, or a month later, a few months later. It's amazing how much more clear you get. And kind of once you start going down a path of thinking, you have clarity to it. I believe in, doing a little bit of testing, going out and trying it, doing some exploration, thinking about how you could do it, getting in touch with other organizations around that calling, and just starting to go down the path a little bit. It takes a little bit of intentional effort and thought and a little bit of action, and it happens rather quickly. In the scheme of things, it takes a very little bit of time, and you can come to clarity. There is what I found. And we've seen people, Lloyd, in our group together, who came in 6 months ago with not the slightest clue to what they wanted to do, what their calling was, and now having extreme levels of clarity and already taking action. So, joining a group like Halftime, of course, is a phenomenal way to get started, but just testing. And what I try to do is I go and I think about big picture what I want to do, and then I start thinking about, all right, well, what does that mean I would need to do this year, and then what would I need to do this quarter, and what could I do this week or this day? And you start figuring out how you put it into action, how you'd incorporate your life. You start getting clarity rather quickly.
Yeah, the other thing I see you doing is circling around people that are older, that have, been at something for a while. We had a call the other day with David Weekly, and you were talking about affordable housing, and he had some perspectives on affordable housing. And next thing I know, you're teed up to go down and hang out with him a little bit in Houston, right? So I think, Doug, that's a big factor too, is to clarifying your calling, is to start talking to people who are doing it and are a few steps ahead of you. Now, the other second thing was distractions, right? Comfort and distractions are probably at 60, those are probably yours and my biggest obstacles. Is I've got, so many fun things to do here on Lake Norman and tennis or whatever. It's comfort and distractions that can easily take over my life and help me and force me to not use the time wisely for my calling. What do you do, Doug? What have you found that helps you, take the time to get, zoned in on what we're doing together in our partnership and doing these?
Well, I don't know that I'm as ruthless as Don is with his calendar, but because I've seen his spreadsheet, it's amazingly simple. But essentially, I put it on the calendar and focus in on that. I don't count them like you do, but it's an important part of what I do. So I have things that I do that I consider maybe play. And then I have some other things that I do that are, helping halftime and being involved in that, and then with the family and the church. And so they've all got their time slots, but mine's a bit simplistic compared to Don's.
Well, and simplicity is actually a key, I think, to getting the distractions out of our lives. One of the things we decided to do was just have one home, for example. And so instead, we sold our farm in Canada, and to just have one home that doubles up as a lake house is a simplifying factor. Now, that's not important for everybody, but for us, that was an important thing, to be able to be focused on this. And then, simplifying my business and simplifying our investments. Those were volitional choices so that I don't get distracted by managing our investments or managing our business. And it's cost me something. And whenever you simplify your life and you declutter it so that you can focus on your purpose, it's going to cost you something. So, Don, we're just talking about this idea of getting distracted, right? And how that stands in the way, and also just comforts and leisure. What are some of the things you do? You've got more moving parts because you've got several, homes, and then you got, a lot more employees than we have. But what are some of the things you've been doing to avoid getting distracted?
Well, it's not all that much of a challenge, to be honest. If because I've taken the time to really think out, what are the things I want to accomplish, and I have a lot that I want to do. And then when I build them into my calendar, my fight every week and year is, how do I fit all of these priorities in? And to your point, simplifying down, and then looking for opportunities, 2-for-1s and 3-for-1s, where I can get the biggest impact. That's why it was so critical that I really made sure that the impact I'm going to make and is tied directly to my business, right? Because if it's something that I can't impact through my business, and it's got to be a completely separate set of time, it's going to be very, very hard. But when I fill my calendar very intentionally around the areas I want to make a difference and who I want to spend my time with, it doesn't really leave any time for distraction. I don't have any time available to waste. So when you look at it that way, I look at my schedule and say, nearly, other than my wife gives me a honey to-do list every now and then, and I get stuck doing a couple hours worth of stuff I have no interest in doing, I still try to look at that, what's making my wife happy, so it's productive. But other than those couple hours every now and then, I only spend my time on areas that I feel are directly aligned with the areas of I want to make an impact on. And so that just doesn't leave time for distraction or waste. It does force you, though, to have to say no to things, right? There's lots of times where I'd love to just go hang out, with some friends, or just sit around and chat, or, go golfing or something. But I can't just have the freedom to just do that whenever I want and blow off things, because, I've got a lot to get accomplished. So that focus and that purpose behind each thing I'm doing kind of helps you avoid, unproductive or distracted time, at least for me.
So, Doug, maybe we'll, since we're at the top of the hour here and a little bit past, just because we retraced our steps for a few minutes, Let's spend a little bit of time on questions. I think we've got a couple of questions, and then we'll wrap it up.
All right, but before we go to that, Lloyd, do we have time just to get from Don how he would summarize the three most important things to ruthlessly carving out these important things on your calendar?
Sure.
Sure. So I struggled with this, simplifying this into three simple areas, but I'd say it starts with intentionality in what you accomplish, setting very clear goals, and then putting those goals into your actual calendar are the very simplest steps I can say to making getting your impact calling into your calendar. It sounds so simple, and it really is at the end of the day. So intentionally deciding where you want to spend your time, setting clear goals around what you want to accomplish, and then putting it into your actual calendar. So I put it into my annual calendar, to my travel schedule and where I'm going to be and what I'm going to spend my time in. And then each week into how I'm going to spend, each hour of my time. And I let that drive everything. Let that drive what I'm doing, and consistently look back and review what I'm doing well, what I'm not, and make adjustments accordingly to better be aligned with, where I want to make an impact.
Good.
All right. We're going to move into the questions, but just to give you a chance to catch your breath, Don, I wanted to remind everybody that for those that are interested, we have two opportunities for a halftime refresh and a roundtable in Charlotte. So if you have some interest in that, click on the link, the green box there in the bottom center, and check with Lloyd, and he can explore more. So now we're going to go to the questions. If you've got a question, please put it in the Ask a Question field, even while we're going through these. And if you don't have a question, you can actually vote up a question that you like. So our first question comes from Alan. How did you integrate calling and purpose in your business, as business occupies so much of our time and our calendar?
Yeah, thank you, Alan, for the question. So, for me, it was deciding that I needed to be able to make a sizable, scalable difference. And there's a lot of things that I, have levels of passion around, but I don't have the resources or expertise or relationships to really make an impact. So, example, my mom just, survived cancer, but I have no expertise or relationships around cancer that I can make a big impact there. The way my business is designed, I can make a big impact on specific areas such as the affordable workforce housing crisis. And it's a huge crisis, one that I passionately come across and deal with and combat in my business every day. So I made the decision because I could see the issue firsthand, and then I realized that I could make a scalable difference, and I'm uniquely positioned to be able to do so more than I am on other significant crises. So I'd say a little bit happened just naturally. Where do I have relationship skills, expertise, and my uniquely positioned to make the biggest impact here today?
Doug, is there anything we can do on the echo that we're hearing from Don?
No, I'm afraid
Sorry,
we've got
guys.
some internet issues there, Lloyd. I don't think that's anything that we can do.
Okay.
We've got just one more question, and if Don is still there, we'll try and
He's
get
there.
through that last one. That or Lloyd, you can jump in there. So the next question is, what is your filter for prioritizing what you schedule on your calendar?
Yeah. So, for me, the biggest filter is my mission statement, and my mission statement is to be a thought leader, mobilizing high capacity leaders to make a kingdom impact. So the first question I ask is this a place where thought is forming? You don't need a thought leader if you have a strategy in place and if all you're doing is executing it. So I always ask, is this a place where thought is forming? And the second thing I ask is this a high capacity leader? And then the third question is, do they want to make a real impact with their life, or do they just want to live a more fulfilling life? And I'm looking to help people who want to change the world. So those are three filters. If they all pass, then I put them in my calendar because I know I'm going to get a high return on my time. So Don, how do you decide on what gets into your calendar and what filter?
Yeah, so I filter it, each year by I look first at my, big long-term picture similar to you of my mission and what I want to accomplish. And then, as I said, I set these goals every year around each area of life, my living fully dashboard. And so I start there. So I say, what do I want to accomplish in my family? What do I want to accomplish in my, ministry? And then I build my calendar around there. So I've built a number of specific, rituals or routines that help there. I'm not nearly as good as Lloyd is of having a Linda day all day every Friday, but I make sure I do 24 date nights a year and 4 Carla days. And we decided a while ago we want to travel at least 12 weeks a year. So I build those into my calendar around other opportunities for travel. So I build each of these areas in at the beginning of each year, and I lay them out in my calendar, and I lay them across, kids' sports and school and holidays and family time, and just integrate them. It takes a number of hours, but I sit and I integrate, that calendar each year, and then I work that into an every week calendar that, is always evolving.
Cool. Well, I think we should stop there, but Don, I know we covered a lot and there's more to that. So maybe we'll come back and do a deeper version a little bit later on in the spring, if that's okay. I know you got lots on your calendar right now in terms of travel, and you're gone for the next month, which is wonderful. I think, is it 3 years from now that you're planning a longer time with the family to get out and about?
Well, since we semi unexpectedly, or I guess didn't know when God would grant us.
Oh no.
I think
Months at a time. So we're starting off in New Zealand and Australia next year.
Cool. Well, Doug, let's stop there and we'll send everybody the recording. So if somebody missed the first little bit, they'll get it in the link, right?
Correct. Yeah, we do have it all there. My apologies for our technical issues. We seem plagued by them tonight. But again, for the most part, it's all intact in the recording. And we'll also spell out some folks could wanted some specific things written out. And Shannon points out, Don, your answer right here at the very end, we might want to get that down. So maybe you can shoot that to us in an email. I just wanted to say I was really impressed with your prioritizing where you said if you could, a single was just a single, a double was even better, a triple or a home run. I love that analogy because that's a powerful filter in and of itself. I'll never forget that. Thank you. I appreciate everybody joining us tonight. Again, we apologize for the technical issues. Hopefully we can get those all corrected when we have our next event next month. So thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again. Good night.